I strongly urge people to listen to what I'm saying and to consider owning gold and silver as significant historical wealth and not rely upon a dollar, which is at the end of its Keynesian fiat.
Where's all the gold and silver going? Who is just draining all the gold and silver exchanges and stockpiling them physically? Well, you guessed it, the time has come when the US dollar or any other fiat currency will be totally worthless. Earlier, economists have been trying to fool the general public that the US dollar won't break that easily. However, they themselves were draining their bank accounts and using their US dollars to buy gold and silver. Yes, this is the warning for you. If you want to protect your wealth, you must do what Andy Schectman says. He is the president of Miles Franklin Precious Metals and has over 25 years of experience in finance, economics, and precious metals. Perhaps, before you do anything, you must listen to what he has to say.
Why are the super private and well-informed investors draining the London Metals Exchange and COMEX of all its metal to where the London Metals Exchange has the least amount of silver ever in the history of the exchange since they started taking records? Why has 70% of all the registered silver been drained off of COMEX over the past 18 months? Why do we see in one day 45% of all the kilo bars in gold, 26 million ounces gone in one day delivered off of COMEX? Who's got that kind of bread? Why do we see 2 weeks after that 5% of all the 100-ounce gold bars on COMEX delivered off of COMEX? When you deliver a bar off the COMEX exchange, it's a one-way street because you no longer have the liquidity. But we had some very large orders recently that some of them have become public because one of the clients that I did an order with wanted me to tell the world how difficult it was for her to get $50 million out of the bank to place an order with us. It took her almost 5 days. And she wanted me to tell everyone that get your money out of the banks because it took me 5 days to get my money with threats of calling the regulators to get my money out of the bank. So anyone who pulls metal off of COMEX like this, these massive deliveries we've seen, where in one day all this stuff is disappearing and this bleed down of supply, normally they would take it out of one category called registered. Those are the bars that can be delivered, and move it into eligible. Those are bars that they're eligible if I want to put them into register, but they're not for sale. They're mine. I'm hanging on to them, not for sale. And that's what a lot of people would do. They would just keep them in an eligible category. Well, instead of doing that and leaving them in the safety of an eligible category, that means if one of my clients who has a whole bunch of 1,000-ounce bars wants to sell them and take advantage of Elon Musk's generous offer, we could transfer them from eligible to registered, and Elon could then take possession of them. Registered means all of the numbers are already validated on the bars, the weights, the bar numbers, the authenticity goes from eligible to registered. He can take possession of them and pay me my money, but not if they're not in the COMEX ecosystem. So when all of this stuff is delivered off of COMEX.
Andy has pointed towards something everyone is missing. Gigantic investors and companies are draining the London Metal Exchange and COMEX of gold and silver. You should know that these two exchanges are the biggest ones dealing in precious metals. However, lately, they are seeing exceptionally high drainage. But what does that mean? How are these exchanges being drained in the first place? Well, like all exchanges, precious metal exchanges are used for metal trading. Instead of physically buying and selling gold and silver, investors buy the positions representing gold and silver. No type of physical exchange of metals is done during buying and selling. In other words, the gold and silver available on the exchanges are stored somewhere, but those who buy them don't claim to get them delivered to their homes. However, if they want, they can claim to have gold and silver physically. Earlier, people used to buy gold and silver and hold positions only. They would never get gold and silver delivered to their homes from the precious metal exchanges. Here's a little reminder to like the video if you are enjoying it. And if you don't want to miss videos about the evolving economics and the financial order, subscribe to our channel. Let's continue now. But now, times have changed. Andy Schectman said that now, large companies and gigantic investors are buying gold and silver and claiming to have the metals physically. In other words, they are taking gold and silver off the exchanges. Simply, they are drying up the liquidity available. Andy said that the London Metal Exchange now has the least amount of silver available in its history. This has never happened before. Investors used to buy silver and gold, but they never decided to have custody of the precious metals. That's a major difference, and you need to understand this. When precious metals are not taken into custody, it means the investors have plans to sell them in the near future. However, when they ask to have gold and silver delivered, it means they don't want to sell them back anytime soon. Andy said in the past 18 months, about 70% of silver has been taken off of COMEX. They won't come back on the exchange ever again because now they are in the physical market. Their owners possess them now, meaning they have been taken off circulation. Andy said that 45% of all the gold kilo bars had been taken off of COMEX in one single day. That's equal to 26 million ounces. People are no longer trusting the fiat currency, and why should they? Andy talked about his client, who had difficulty withdrawing $50 million from her bank accounts. She had to threaten the banks with legal action, and it was then that she got her money back after 5 days. Once she got the money, she bought gold and silver and delivered them. In other words, every investor who knows the present vulnerable state of fiat currencies is choosing to have precious metals. They are deciding to get gold and silver bars from the exchanges and keep them with them. They are now touchable bars which the owners can see. They can go to the market whenever they want to sell, set a deal, and get the money. However, that's not going to happen. Nobody wants worthless paper in return for real valuable gold and silver. And where are all that gold and silver going? Listen to what Andy Schectman said about that.
It was just an article by Reuters and Bloomberg, and it said that the central banks bought a record 399 tons of gold worth over $20 billion in the third quarter of 2022. 340% higher than Q3 2021, almost double the previous record of 241 tons in Q3 2018. But Bloomberg called the buyers of all of this gold and silver mystery whales. And they postulated that the mystery whales buyers were likely either China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, or India. And they also noted that the central bank purchases were nearly double the previous record. So what do all of these countries have in common? Yes, they're BRICS. So you are seeing massive drawdowns, huge amounts being drawn down off the exchanges. And it's a one-way street because once it leaves COMEX, it's lost its liquidity. These deliveries, these massive drawdowns in metals, it's been happening since I started talking about the others in 2020. It has not stopped. In fact, it's increased massively. And who's been buying more gold at any time since 1967? Oh yeah, the central banks. Why are they buying gold and silver? Oh yeah, gold's tier one reserve asset, and everyone's moving away from the dollar. And you see how all of these things start to come together? I think we often take the dollar's reserve status for granted, simply because we've grown up under this system. But the truth is that reserve currencies come and go every 100 years or so. And the dollar was the only choice when we moved to a full fiat currency system because of Bretton Woods and the trillions of dollars that had all been circulating globally. But I think that we are looking at a period of time right now where these countries are beginning to break away and accentuate themselves against the centuries-old Western dominance. I think the handwriting is on the wall. We will wake up at some point, probably sooner than later, to a new system that will challenge the dollar for its world reserve. You already have China saying to Russia that we are ready to get serious right now and build the energy infrastructure with Russia and the other BRICS nations. You can see it. It's happening. And when that announcement is made and OPEC and Saudi Arabia dump the dollar as its sole settlement currency, and all of these countries on the planet who have had to own dollars for 50 years start to sell them because the dollar becomes a hot potato, this is your great reset moment where the dollar comes flooding home, creating massive inflation, hyperinflation. And the byproduct of inflation is higher interest rates to compensate for the loss of purchasing power. I really do believe that if you are not a contrarian, you will be a victim. I really do believe that if you are fully invested in dollars, you're destined to go broke. And I want people to know that when I talk about gold and silver, it is never, ever, ever, and go back and listen to anything I've said for the past decade, gold is not an investment. Silver is not an investment. It may perform like one, may make you wealthy, but they are wealth. 5,000-year wealth that has outlived every world war, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, and every pandemic. And when you see the most well-funded, well-informed, influential traders on the planet accumulating the stockpile of metal that they are, when you see a company like JP Morgan, who paid a $920 million fine to the Justice Department for suppressing gold and silver, accumulate over 45 million ounces of gold and 1.2 billion ounces of silver, the largest physical position of metals ever owned off their books. When you see the most sophisticated, well-informed, influential traders on the planet massively accumulating metals and de-dollarizing, whether it be the US commercial banks or the foreign central banks, when you see the rise of the others, the most influential and well-informed private traders draining the London Metals Exchange, draining the coin.
Andy quoted a Bloomberg article where the gold and silver buyers were called the mystery whales. The reason for that is nobody knows who they are. However, Bloomberg estimated those mystery whales could be China, Russia, India, and Saudi Arabia. Does that ring a bell? Well, apart from Saudi Arabia, the remaining countries are members of BRICS. At the same time, Saudi Arabia is almost ready to join BRICS and build a grand alliance with Russia and China. Every country had the US dollar as its reserve currency. However, this is changing, and the proof says it all. Earlier, all trade was made in the US dollar, but now, countries like China, Russia, and Saudi Arabia are choosing their own currencies. All this is hurting the US dollar drastically and ripping off its international currency status. Now, if the BRICS countries replace the US dollar with gold, there is no way the US dollar will be worth anything. Inflation will prevail in the US, and above all, people holding US dollars and their wealth will go bankrupt. The US dollar will not be worth the paper it is printed on. That's why big investors are making smart choices and choosing gold and silver. Now imagine what if BRICS nations officially announced to dump the US dollar. Every other country will follow suit, and it will be the end for the US dollar. Big investors have already started building a hedge to avoid getting bankrupt at that time. They are buying gold and silver for that reason. It's not an investment for them which will grow and give them profit. It's wealth which will keep their money secure and protected. This is the wealth that has outwitted every world war, every pandemic, every crisis, and every end of civilization. Where are we headed to? Is the US dollar going to be wiped away soon? Well, you can't risk your money and choose to hold it in the US dollar or any other fiat currency, right? Tell us in the comment section right below when you are converting your fiat money into precious metals like gold and silver. If you want to stay protected, you have to make a choice. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos on the latest economics and financial news. Until the next video, stay tuned.